and stimulates. So you start to change. And it's something sprouting to me is amazing. And Margaret Bondi is really one of the great world experts on this. But when you take many things, an alfalfa sprout or wheat or sunflower, and you start to sprout it, not only does that, if you eat it, become more digestible, but it becomes 10 times more nutritious. And wheat, if you're allergic to wheat, generally people allergic to wheat can still have wheat grass, because wheat is a grain, grass is a grass. You start becoming something different. Still, there's something the same too. Does that make sense? The wheat berry and the wheat sprout, there's a quality of weakness, whatever that is, that's carried from the seed to the sprout, to the plant. And eventually that wheat grass produces wheat seeds. So if that's all nice for potatoes and wheat, how does it feel for you? Take a small thing. We're in big election year. You might consider yourself Republican or Democrat or progressive or conservative or wildly whatever you might be, or some mix of that. Part of growth is to not identify yourself as. Just using this as one example, you don't look and say, well, I identify with this party. Because when you do that kind of identification, so you start fine, then you become defined, then you refine. Come back to the original findings. That's the other thing. Change. Even ideas, spiritual ideas, you have to let go of at some point. You need them. It's not that we want uninformed yogis, but we use knowledge a little differently. We use each piece of knowledge as like a light on the path. I need to know where to go. I need to know who I am. This piece of knowledge sheds a little bit of light. When I can see where I'm going, I can travel. So if you are a person who would think and say, God is love, at some point you're going to say, no, that even makes God too little. Because it's limited by my ideas of whatever God is, my ideas of what love is, which is probably something I got a little bit from my parents. Sometimes maybe not how not to love great ways. Sometimes parents are not perfect. Sometimes we learn it from watching television, movies, music. This is what love looks like. We define love. Then we apply it to God and say, okay, this is what. But even that has to go. We talked about the seeds a minute ago. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, at one point he defines the highest possible state of yoga as nirbija, no seeds. So first we're doing all this cultivating, and then no seeds. Nirbija, seeds. Beyond name, beyond form, beyond any ideas we have. And along the way, we have to be different. It's not necessarily you become like Jekyll and Hyde, even in a good way. By which one was the bad one? Hyde or Jekyll? Jekyll.
No,
Hyde?
the doctor.
Okay, the doctor. So that's Jekyll and bad guy Hyde. This would be Jekyll and good guy out in yoga. Jekyll and out in yoga. It's not that you have a total change of personality. No one would recognize who you are. In some ways, you might surprise. But it's still essentially you. You, but very different. Paradox. And change is frightening to us. Because change always implies the other side of change is, I don't know. I can think it's going to work a certain way, but I don't know until I get there. So change requires courage. Transformation requires courage. Requires patience. Requires effort. It reminds me, I just had reinforced a good lesson recently. And the lesson is, effort without knowledge is not that helpful. And the great divine vehicle that brought this lesson again was getting a new computer. Yoga Life Society realized I was having trouble with my computer. It's really their computer. It's getting older now. I know it's at 6 years old or something, which makes it in the computer years a real dinosaur. It's like a zombie. We went to the Apple store and we told them what we had this. Did you know they have a formula? I think it's after 4 years. It says 4 years is antiquated, 5 years obsolete. They have that all planned out. And so mine was like, we didn't have a funeral order. So we got a new computer. And while things were bad with the first, they were much worse with the new, right after that. And Johnny and I spent 4 days, average of 10 hours a day. This is really true. On the phone with Apple Care. I couldn't open any files anymore. It was just doing these very strange things. So I did the things you're supposed to do. Everybody knows. You keep rebooting and unplugging and plugging. Which me just seems like it's getting very fussy. Okay, you have to do that. I'm not going to work until you plug in. How's that now? You're happy? Okay. Anyway, so we went through a couple of tech support people, and twice erased and install the entire operating system. No change. So the poor woman, last one said, okay, we'll hang up. We're going to get like someone above me, like my pay grade, who knows about it. Okay, higher tech support. They're going to have to do this. Okay, fine. So this wonderful woman, Kimberly from Oregon, who now I know about her pets, I know her husband. She called, and 4 days, 10 hours or more per day on the phone with her. Nothing worked. She couldn't understand. She said, this should work. Let's try it again. Do this, do this, do this. And you know the one where they take over your screen? This big red arrow is flying around. She said, do this, do this. We're doing all these things. Nothing worked. Nothing. She happened to be much more advanced than me. She was like, it's okay, we'll figure this out. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. This is constant. Finally, on the fourth day, on the fourth day, she rose from the day. We had our phone appointment with her late at night, because we were going till midnight. It's really amazing. We had her personal number, almost her address. I've written in the pen sheet. Anyway, she called up and said, I just talked to someone who's been doing this particular thing. If you know Apple is speaking about permissions. You know that? Yeah. You know that. Like, this is a great analogy for life. We would try to do something, and then a window would pop up and say, you can't do this because you're not authorized. Do this to authorize. This is what we did. And it would say, you don't have to authorize, you already are. What? And over and over again. It wasn't that it said it couldn't authorize us. It said we were authorized, but it didn't matter to it. It was. So she talked to someone who had 6 years experience just in permissions. And she had talked to him the day before, by the way. Nothing, but she said, I just talked to this guy again. He just found out that Apple, the corporation, made changes in the structure of the permissions and didn't tell any of the service centers. They knew nothing about it. So at that point, Johnny and I would trade off. She was at the desk. And all I know is 5 minutes later it was solved. Bam. She just went in, clicked something, I don't even know what it was. 2 days to this click, boom, bam, done. So the lesson is lots of effort without knowledge isn't enough. That's like a parallel to the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The road to hell is paved with lots of effort and no knowledge. Because you want to put your effort where it's going to work. Bhagavad Gita actually teaches that. It's a part that we skip because it sounds like work. It talks about a perfect act, a skillful act in yoga. It defines yoga as perfection in action. And we read that and say, yes, we don't need what he said just before that, which is probably explained. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, the perfect act, is not only someone that does something with good selfless intent, but it's an informed action based on known wisdom. Patanjali calls it reliable knowledge. He actually said this is something we should develop, is reliable knowledge. Like poor Kimberly, if she knew that one little piece of knowledge, instead of 4 days and 40 hours, it would 1 day and 15 minutes. And half of that 15 minutes we've been talking about her dogs that are jumping around in Oregon. So there was no lack of effort. So if you sit around trying to do some yoga things, a little bending, stretching, meditating, it's fine. But you may not be getting the benefits that you hope for. It's true that ultimate knowledge you want is beyond all of this. We want to start beyond. You don't start beyond. Start where you are. You don't grab onto a teaching in a death grip, but you don't let go until it gets you where you want to go. In the past, I've heard people criticize yoga and even religion in general, saying, well, all these things are just crutches. And it's a little hurtful to people to hear that. The thing they believe in so dearly is a crutch. And so their first impulse is to say, it's not a crutch. It's something real and deep. And my thinking was always, yeah, of course it's a crutch. If you break your leg, what do you need? A crutch. Is it a bad thing? If your life is broken, you need wholeness, you want a crutch. Yeah, of course the teachings are crutches. What else would they be? And by the way, this is not me making it up. The whole system of philosophy in the East is based on that, understanding how the mind works. It says that your mind can't think without what they call lamba, L-A-M-B-A, lamba, which means support. Your mind can't think without a support, a crutch. This is the deepest philosophy coming out of India. It says you need support. A simple example. You have a craving for sweet. So everybody's had that sometime. Does anybody know? By the way, I'm just curious. Anybody never had a craving? Like you know what I mean, craving. You don't care what's for dinner. You don't care if you're hungry. All you need is a cannoli, and that's it. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. Remember the Godfather? Anyway. But the point is, you can't have sweet directly. You can't go anywhere and just buy sweet. You have to get something to carry it, a support for the sweet. Chocolate, cannoli, apple, raisins, honey. Wherever you taste sweet, it's being carried by something. If you want to get to sweet, you have to have a support for it. If you want to experience love, you have to have something to love you and for you to love. You just can't have it out of nowhere. If you're enlightened, yeah. That's where we want to start always. No, I'll start at the end, please. Good would tell a story about a young seeker who was so eager to experience all the spiritual growth, and one day he found a great master. And he thought, this is my guru. He went up to the master. And he wanted to say, well, you accept me as a disciple. But the master was busy, lots of people coming. And as the young man was watching, he noticed that whatever the guru said, the disciples would do. So finally, the guru turns to the young man and says, well, what is it you would like? He says, well, I'm just curious. I came to be a disciple, but I'm watching you. How would you describe what you do? He says, well, I just give the guidance and I do what I ask. He said, well, I was coming to be a disciple, but I'd rather be a guru. Can I start there? It doesn't work that way. So before you become Niralamba, you know the song? The chant, Niralamba? Tejase, Sachidananda Murtaya, Nishbrahmacharya, Niralambaya, Tejase, without support. Before you can get to that, Nira means without. Niralamba, without support. So when they talk about the great gurus, enlightened people, they'll say, oh, they're Niralamba. No support. And we say, well, that's where I want to go. This is fine. But they don't start that way.
You want to even experience sometimes, oh, does God exist? How do you know unless you find a support for that? You find some of that in sacred texts. You find that in great sages and saints. They become carriers of that, just like apple is carrier for sweet. The great enlightened ones are carriers for that light. Not that you don't have it, but you can't start by thinking, I have it, I'm done. Because here's what happens. And I know Margaret Bonder's seen it millions of times too. You can't just go by your own feeling then. Well, the light is within. I don't need any guidance. Whatever I feel to do is right. It turns into, if it feels good, do it. There isn't a scripture on the planet that says that. Many times what's good for you doesn't feel so good in the beginning. Isn't it so? Don't we know that?
Yes.
I've gone to Margaret Bundu many times for healing, and he makes these wonderful jugs of herbs that when you taste it, it's like, wow. Don't feel like I want to, I would rather have something, pineapple juice or something nice and sweet. But I get this. Oh no, 3 times a day I have to drink this stuff that's like brown and tastes like shellac or something. But I understand it's good for me, so I take it. So if it feels good, do it isn't enough. Sometimes it doesn't feel good to grow. It feels a little scary. Like I said, you don't know what's on the other side. Right? It's a bud that's closed. What's it going to look like when it opens? Sometimes even people who know you will reflect this fear back to you. They see you getting involved with yoga more and more, going to more classes, programs. They think, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to suddenly one day shave off all their hair, throw on an orange robe, and run away? Maybe. We don't know. But that's not like an inevitability. People will even say that to you. Am I going to lose you? So we have to become comfortable with this idea of transformation. We have to understand the process that a teaching will have in us. We all start exactly the same, on the most superficial level. It's the only way they introduce to anything. The first time you heard peace is within, your understanding was on some superficial level. And you probably never stopped, at least in the beginning, to think, number one, what do they mean by peace? Which is a big question. What do they mean by within? Within what? What exactly does that mean? But we take it on that level. Sounds good. Makes sense. Other people believe it. I see enough evidence that I'm going to get involved. That's first stage. You could call it conditional faith or belief. I have enough evidence to enter into a relationship with the teachings. You don't know yet. You haven't experienced it. If you're making an apple pie, you never made it before, you may look up, these days, right, you look online, and you look for how many stars the recipe gets. How many stars? Oh, 138 people give this apple pie recipe 5 stars. Then you click on it and you look, what are the ingredients? How do you make it? Sounds right to you. Then you go out, get the ingredients, prepare it just like it says, cook it like it says, then taste them, Until you taste it, you don't know. You believe it. I have enough faith. Maybe you know the chef, if it's a famous chef. I remember years ago, maybe Jonathan would remember, we found a recipe. This is back in the mid-'70s. I haven't had it since. There was a recipe in a Julia Child cookbook for a pie made with applesauce. It was applesauce and had maple syrup. I don't even remember everything. It was so good. Why did we try it? It's Julia Child. And she's famous. She said it was one of her favorite pies. We tried it. Conditional faith. By the way, if you want to see if her recipe is good, you can't go around changing it. You don't know, right? What's key? So she says a teaspoon of cinnamon. You want 2 teaspoons. Maybe what works so good? Are you thinking, I like clove. I'll substitute clove for cinnamon. Same amount. You know how clove is. Right? It's tasty in small amounts. Large amounts gets real bitter, like medicinal. In Ayurveda, they even use it for toothaches. Clove. So you have to follow directions. So spiritual life is like that. You encounter a teaching on a superficial level, you investigate, seems to make sense. Now you get involved in a relationship. You give, it gives. You give, it gives. You work with it. And to the best of your ability, you follow the teaching. And at a certain point, and this is all learning reaches this point. All learning, all skills. At some point, there's a shift that happens from examining the teaching to examining yourself. You can't grow further until you get through your own hang up a little bit. If you get a mantra for meditation, in the beginning it's you repeating the mantra. At some point, you have to face the person who's repeating. Has to happen. Then you're going to a deeper level. That's where you have to start changing in order to continue. Father Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan monk and priest, talks about it as encountering the shadow self. That's what he calls it, shadow self. That means it's a self you present to everybody. Look at me, look at me. Then it's the inside self that you don't want anybody to know. Happens, by the way, even physically. Like some people, anybody here do body work? You? Some people, you see the front of their body is all soft, warm, nice. And then if you turn them over on the back, it feels all like lead pipes. That means the part they're presenting is fine, but they're holding some kind of deep tension in the back. Years ago, one of my clients was a Catholic priest. An amazing man. Sebastian Vasili. He was at Rutgers University. He was part of the Association of Campus Ministers. I was also. Somehow he got to know I was doing body work, a lot of which I learned from Margot Bandhu. And he was just an extraordinarily beautiful man, physically even. He had this beautiful slim build, like a greyhound kind of. And his hair was prematurely white, but white. It wasn't gray, it was white. And he had, like, those of you who remember Paul Newman's eyes, he had Paul Newman blue eyes. He was a beautiful man. And he gave Mass at Rutgers regularly, 700 people. At Rutgers, students would come. Everybody else, 15, 20, they had 30, they would announce. 700 Factory Chapel in the area. So I don't remember all whatever his health concerns were working. When he turned over, his back was like old lead pipe. I said, something in this man he's really dealing with is very difficult. I won't say what it is. I did find out later what it was going on. But it was all back here, and there was no place he could resolve it at that point. The authorities in the church were not being cooperative at the time to help him out. By the way, what helped, if you try to massage someone like that, it just makes more tension because it's already clenched, right? So one technique is you get very comfortable standing there, and what I would do is I would pet his back like I was petting a dog. 15 minutes. I timed it. You have to time it. 15 minutes, very light, just the weight of my hands, not the arms, just the weight of my hands. Stroking, very rhythmic. 15 minutes, it would start to relax. Because there are nerves on the surface that go deep. If you go deeper with pressure, you miss those nerves. You want the ones that go all the way down to the bone. You can come every week and do that. So he had a shadow self that had to be dealt with. We all have that part that we don't want really anybody to see. I don't know how many times I've heard from people, if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me. Have you ever felt that yourself? About so someone really knew what you were like, really knew what you were thinking. They wouldn't like you. That's the shadow part. So what we tend to do is like what Seb did, put it in the back. Mentally, even physically. We shove it somewhere. Transformation requires of you that you face it. Not in a forced way, not in a confrontational way, but in a natural, organic way. But face it, you must. And you know, one of the best tools for that, maybe we don't think about this, is Sangha, the spiritual community. Why? Because you see everybody else's shadows as well, right? You work with someone a while, you see it. Whatever the weaknesses are, and we all have them. People see that. That means they see it in you too. They see some of your not as pretty side, and they still love and respect you. And that's when the healing starts. You don't have to perform for them to get their affection and their respect. Without a doubt, you are not a trained seal. You don't have to perform to get a piece of fish thrown at you. You are not loved because of anything you do. As long as you think you have to earn love, then you're operating in ignorance. The fact that you exist is enough. There's nothing you need to do to earn it. And Sangha is one of the places you learn it. Certainly we learned it also with Gurudev. We could do the most outrageous things. He would still love us. Although one day I thought I was close to being booted. I don't know what I did. I can't remember anything. I was on the phone with him. I really don't remember. I wish I could remember what it was. I had a number of now like legendary encounters with him. But one time I did something. I was on the phone and he said, I wish I could repeat his voice. I can't. But he said it was something like, I heard that first. I said, oh no. He said, oh, Jagannath, I don't know why I keep you around me. all you do is cause me trouble. And then I thought, this can't be right. I actually said to him, I don't believe it. He said, what? I said, "Yeah." I know I'm not easy, but I don't think you're really being disturbed. I think your awareness is beyond me, like my problems. He laughed. He said, okay, thank you. That was the conversation. But when you see that kind of unconditional love, you can't lose it. There's a story of Master Shivananda, true story. He was giving satsang like this. I'm not getting anybody ideas, but anyway, he was giving satsang like this, and suddenly someone jumped up, had like a hatchet, and came running after him and threw it. This all happened within a second or two, right? Just as he was throwing it, Master Shivananda reached to get something, and the hatchet whizzed by his head. And disciples, being what they are, good disciples, they jumped up and tackled this fellow. Like this group of people tackled him. Master Shivananda's first response was, please don't hurt him. First thing, please don't hurt him. Bring him here to me. They bring this fellow up. He said, when was the last time you ate? Do you have a place to stay? Then bring this man some food right now. Make sure he has a place to stay tonight. He just threw a hatchet at him. He became one of the disciples. What did he have to do to earn this great master's love?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's just there. What did you do to earn the warmth and light of sunshine? Like what virtuous act that you did? Just shines. By the way, many of us know the saying of Jesus when he said, be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And an example of perfection he gives is the sun. He defines perfection as the sun shining on the virtuous and non-virtuous. That's his definition of perfect. He doesn't say be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Don't make mistakes, or God won't love you. That's perverted theology. If ever you hear someone preaching, you have to earn God's love. That's not really correct. You just are loved. It's very hard for us to understand. In the Bhagavad Gita, what you know is a dialogue between master and disciple. Krishna the master, Arjuna the disciple. Arjuna first has to face his shadow self. There's 18 chapters in the Gita. Each chapter is entitled, beginning of the title is Yoga of. So yoga of meditation, yoga of renunciation, right? Whatever, yoga of this and that. The first one, some of you know the name of the first chapter, the yoga of, anyone remember?
Dejection.
The yoga of dejection, yoga of despondency. It's like the yoga of being miserable. The first chapter, the beginning of yoga, is despondency. Because poor Arjuna is on a battlefield moments before a battle, and he gets frightened. And he gets confused. He doesn't know what to do. Symbolic of our own lives. So many complexities and difficulties. So Arjuna is us. And he says, I don't know what to do. Okay? I shouldn't get involved in this kind of a nasty act, he says. Better that I perish for an eternity in hell than win even this war. Even though it was a righteous war against what he calls himself murderers. He says, if we engage in this battle with these terrible murderers who are oppressing everybody, better that I don't do that. So he says to Krishna, finally, I don't know what to do. I'm your disciple. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then the next sentence, the very next sentence, when he says, please, this is one of my favorite moments in scripture. I'll do anything you want. Anything, just tell me. And then he says, but I won't fight. I'll do whatever you want except whatever you ask me. So first moment of being a disciple shows itself, right? Oh, I give myself to you fully, unless I don't agree. You can't do that. That's how we all start, but really, that's not where we want to go. Right? Whereas, what are you going to the guru for? You want to do it your way, do it your way. That's why it's such a difficult path, by the way. Takes faith. How do I know that this person is trustworthy? Takes a little time, experimentation, see. How do other people make out doing that? That's why, again, Sangha is so important. So, Krishna begins to teach Arjuna. And the first thing he teaches him is really the difference between the real self, and using Father Rohr's language, the shadow self. He says, this is who you really are. It's yourself. Atman is the word he uses. It was never born, doesn't get old, doesn't get sick, doesn't die. You can't cut it, you can't burn it, you can't make it wet. That's who you really are. Beyond body, beyond mind. That's the real you, Arjuna. If you think you're going to be fighting or that you're killing someone, you're in ignorance. Your true self never fights. Can't be killed. So he starts with this heavy-duty philosophy. And then the rest of the book is this wonderful buffet of irreconcilable ideas. Where Arjuna, and we have to, Arjuna is there to speak for us because he'll repeatedly say throughout the text, please, Krishna, tell me for sure and certain what is the truth here. And so Krishna will say something, and the next chapter say the opposite. It's just like, what? And it goes on and on like that. And constantly Krishna is saying, this is good teaching, right? He says, this is how I picture it. Arjuna, come here. Because he says, now I'm going to tell you the secret. We all like that. Right? Every time you watch a TV show that says, coming next week, they're using that teaching. Because they don't tell you exactly what's going to happen. They just set it up like, and watch next week as and you see some like really provocative scene, but what's going to happen? It's a secret. That's why you tune in. If they told you, you might not tune in. Watch next week as so-and-so marry so-and-so. Well, I know now. What's the use? It's a spoiler alert. So Krishna keeps saying to Arjuna, here's the secret. And the essence of the secret that he keeps repeating takes slightly different forms, but it's really all the same thing from different angles. He said, whatever you do, Arjuna, think of me. Be devoted to me. Offer it to me. Love me. Krishna being standing in the place of the ultimate truth. And it's over and over that it comes to that. No matter what technique he gives, he always ends up with devote to me, think of me only, over and over, until the 18th and last chapter. It has, I think it's 72 verses in the last chapter, and I think it's 64. He says something a little bit different to start. He says, now Arjuna, doesn't say secret. He uses a phrase, sarva guha. Now, the secret of secrets. He's elevated it. Guha means a couple things. The word guha means cave. Also means your heart, the center of your heart, right? Because they understood it had chambers. So the deepest part of you, the deepest part of something, is the guha. And within, so he says, now I'm going to give you the secret of secrets. Arjuna's had to go through all 17, almost full 18 chapters of teaching and practices. We can understand it to mean like lifetime of practice, to hear this one secret of secrets that comes way at the end. And he says, this is the secret of secret, Arjuna. I love you. That's it. The whole book, it's gone the other way, right? Love me, think of me, sacrifice to me. Then right at the end, he says, no, now I'm going to give you the real stuff. I love you. But if I told, he doesn't say this part, but this is what's implied, clearly. If I told you that in the beginning, you wouldn't have believed me. You wouldn't have understood. You wouldn't have understood this. The biggest secret is not what you do, it's what I do. So Krishna's saying, like, come on. I'm the Lord of the universe. I got control of all this. It's on me, not on you. You just have to accept being loved. Do you know how hard it is? You do. You know how hard it is. We don't think of ourselves as lovable. We don't. You might think, I have some friends, I do okay. But do you ever really think of yourself as being like irresistibly cute? I don't mean physical. Do you know what I mean? Irresistibly cute. Like, I remember a time, it was one of so many sweet and blessed moments with Gurudev over the years. One was, I had moved from Virginia. I was living at Yogaville. I was living in New Jersey again. But had to return. I was involved with the Eastern School of Acupuncture, and they had their national certification meeting. The school is having a hearing with the board to get certification. The acupuncture schools have to be certified by a national association, and then it goes to the state, whatever process. So it happened to be in Alexandria, Virginia. So after it was over, I had a day or two. I went to the ashram in Yogaville, and I don't even know how it happened. Didn't we have a dinner with him at Matra Bhavan or something? We were eating with him. That's where it was, Matra Bhavan. He did two things that were very sweet. One is, Matra Bhavan was like a building where he would have meals with guests. I don't know how we got involved. We were there and I just pulled it. I don't even know who it was. Some friends. Amazing the number of people, the kind of people that went through yoga. But anyway, we had this nice meal with Gurudev and whoever the guests were. And we stepped outside and someone was getting his car. This is true, just how it did. He's staying there and he goes, I never heard of you. Do you remember this? I mean, just like that. So I kind of go up to him and I'm getting closer. And I'm standing like a quarter of an inch, shoulder to shoulder. This is how close we are. Just don't look. He says, put your arm down. Can you, like, you know what's coming next, right? I didn't know, like, put your arm down. He says, don't move. I said, I mean, either he's going to like turn me into ash. Finally, he's had enough of me. He really meant it when he said, "All you do is give me trouble, and he's going to end it." I thought that's not a bad way to go. Or this is it. Like he's going to give me like enlightenment. But in some ways, it was better than enlightenment. I feel his hand by mine, and he's putting something in my hand. He puts it in there. Yeah. Don't tell anyone. And I couldn't even look because there were other people around. So there's something in my hand. I'm holding it. I don't know what it is. I'll skip ahead. I'm skipping one part. But it was they had just made, somehow at the ashram, these promotional, I don't think that's the right word, but these watches. The face of the watch had his face on it, right? And they hadn't been released anywhere yet, but he wanted to give it to me as a gift. But he didn't want other people to feel like jealous or anything, you know what I mean? So he was slipping it in my hand so they wouldn't see. And so, but before that moment, waiting for the car still, he stepped back and he was looking at me. And he actually said this. I still can't believe it. He looked at me. John, it's even embarrassing to say. John, you're so handsome. What? In my whole life, I've thought a lot of things about myself. I've never thought of myself as being a particularly nice-looking fellow. But he was like so emotional. It was like amazing. You're so handsome. I'm like, what is he seeing? That was just the key, right? If you're just seeing the physical body, clearly you see lots of people. He traveled over the world dozens of times. It wasn't that I had anything physical that was anything special. He was seeing something that I didn't see yet. That's kind of what love looks like. That's why sometimes we need each other to know that we're really loved. Not just in a structured situation like at work, or even the structure of a family sometimes can get in the way, depending on the family. But when you become in a Sangha, the most unreliable one, never show up on time, always get things a little wrong, and then every time you come, everyone still loves you, that's something. Do you know what I mean? You didn't do anything to earn it. You can't have transformation until that. Because then you can start accepting yourself. By the way, even that moment of him telling me that I look handsome, I had to accept it. It wasn't that easy. I mean, it's kind of funny and cute, but it's like, I had to think, well, that's what he sees. Why should I say no? He's seeing something I don't. If I just say no, 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 it means I'm not accepting some part of myself. Sometimes we spend too much effort to put ourselves down in kind of a false humility. When I first started teaching yoga, it wasn't Hatha. That came second for me. I started teaching Raja Yoga first. And we had classes at Rutgers University through the yoga club there, it's Integral Yoga Club. And the classes, what we had was a Hatha class, was Tuesday evening, Hatha class at 7, then followed at 8:30 by Raja Yoga class. You would have anywhere from 70 to 95 people every class. It were free classes for the students in the community, so they were okay. So when I first started teaching, I had no training. There was no such thing then. Raja Yoga, teacher training, nothing like that. So I would do my preparation and I'd sit down and teach. And in the beginning, I had this habit of repeatedly saying well, here's the teaching, but many of you probably know better than I do, but this is what I know. And I kept saying it over and over again. You may know more than me. Finally, one great soul in the back of the room, I never saw this fellow's face, he said, if you don't know anything, why are you teaching? He was really angry. And it was like a moment where I came to myself yeah, that's not humility. That was me copying. Yeah, well, in case you don't like what I said, it's because I'm not very good. I need the excuse up front. Instead of just putting it out there, they accept it, fine. If they don't, fine. So he taught me a great lesson that really annoyed young fellow. He was really angry. And I thought for him, I said, you're right. Why would you want to listen to me if I don't know anything? So right in front of everybody, it was like 70 people there, I corrected him. I said, you know what? It might be true that some of you know more than me, and I certainly don't know everything, but I'm telling you what I do know best I can. That's my job. Best I can do, I'll present the teachings. Clearly, succinctly as possible. That's all I can do. So even that was like a false humility. Once Buddha was asked, what is humility? And it was the greatest definition. Because it's complete and balanced. He said, humility means like if all the knowledge in the world were an infinite beach, sand beach. Every grain of sand is a piece of knowledge. Humility is you pick up a handful and say, this is what I know. So what you know is really very little compared to what there is to know. But then comes the second part. But what you do know is something great. And he went on to talk about the goddess Saraswati, which he did many times. Seeing depictions of goddess Saraswati. This is our own goddess Saraswati. You have to start doing one of this. She's a goddess Saraswati is always shown holding a book. So this is the goddess of all wisdom. She still has a book. She's still learning. That's the symbolism. Balance. Goddess of wisdom and knowledge still has to learn. That's why. So yoga is change. Yoga is transformation. Little by little. You push out the old grease by putting in new grease. That's how Buddha always taught. You know that? Do you know anything about greasing front end of cars? Not many good. I didn't either, but my father, bless his patient soul, tried to teach me. I'm not good with these things. Buddha would always say, he would always give this as an example. He'd say, you put in the new grease, it pushes out the old grease. And he used car as an example. He was getting a car. My father thought, and it was a good thought, he said, you should know how to do basic maintenance on your car. Right? Change the oil, do a lube job, do a tune-up. In those days, it wasn't all computer. I actually knew how to do a tune-up. But I wasn't really good at it. One day he said, you have to learn how to grease the front end. So I got on one of those little crawlers, you lie on your back and go underneath. So he said, go underneath, and he told me where to look, and I saw these bars, and you had to turn the wheels, they're connected, right? So that's why they turn at the same time. And where the bars connected, it looked like a derby top, little rubber boot-like. And inside that was grease. And he said, okay, you have to get the old grease out and put the new grease in. So you get a grease gun, which has got a hose on it and a handle you pump. And I'm under there with that. And I said, but how do I get the old grease out? It's not like you unscrew it. It's just a boot on top of a fitting, on top of a joint. He said, well, you can't get the old grease out unless you put the new grease in. I said, yeah, but how do I do that? It was a little thing. They said, it's like, you call it a nipple. It's a little metal, looked like a nipple. The whole thing looked kind of like a nipple. It was like a boot with a little piece sticking up. Just put the fitting of the grease gun on top of that nipple. Okay. He said, start pumping the grease. I said, but there's grease inside. There's no room for it. Just start pumping. So I said, all right. He knows what he's doing. Pump, pump, pump. And all of a sudden, at the base of the boot, all this black grease started coming in. He said, keep pumping until you see the fresh grease, which had a kind of greenish tinge. That's yoga. Then you just wipe the old grease, done. Each one, just do that, squeeze, 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 till the old grease comes out. That's our job, put new grease in. That's your practices. That's the environment you keep, the associations you have. You keep putting in new grease, new grease, new grease. Little by little, one day the old grease starts to spurt out. So the advice is, keep yourself inspired. Find some way to stay inspired. Inspiration is your fuel. Teachings are dead without inspiration. They just sit there. Your mantra sits, waiting. You need to have the fuel to pick it up and use it. You pick it up and use it, grow. You follow the yamas and niyamas, you need inspiration for that. Right? You know what inspiration literally means, right? To breathe in. Inspire. You take in energy. What keeps you inspired? Other people read stories of great sages and saints. Chanting. You'll be staying for the Sivaratri, you'll see. There's things you can do to stay inspired. And you just put one foot in front of the other. And then something miraculous happens. Especially on this particular path. Swami Venkateshananda was a brother monk of Gurudev's. They were very close. They were really like brothers. He would talk about, Gurudev would talk about how they would steal food off each other's plates and do all these mischievous things. He was once at Yogaville, and Gurudev wasn't there, so it's like special. It's like you can feel like you can ask him questions, like, ask him, you'll get the real story. So someone said, we've been doing all these practices, and we get up at 5 in the morning, or maybe it was 4:30. It was 4:30 then. And we do meditation 3 times a day, and we do hatha yoga 3 times a day, whatever they're going, do all these things. I said, I don't feel like we're growing that much. That's really a moment, by the way, that all of you, if you're lucky, will hit. That means you've grown some. But you feel like you're not growing enough, you're not satisfied, because you're not growing according to how you imagine. We all imagine, this is a truth moment. This is a truth moment. We won't go outside this room. There's a moment where you realize that you expected by practicing yoga, you would feel holy. I gotcha. Everyone, and there's some image of like, whatever it is you have in your head, you would feel like, oh, wait, there is no such feeling. The moment you feel it, you've lost it. You just are. You're just a regular person. If you start feeling holy, it means you have some delusion, you're living up to it. There's no feeling of holy. You can feel happy. You can feel peaceful. You can feel loving. But you don't feel holy. Do you see the difference? Anyway, so if you reach that point of stagnation, it's probably one of the reasons is that you're not feeling holy. You just look in the mirror and say, I'm lacking that holy feeling. And you'll look at how ridiculous that is and it'll go away. But anyway, this poor person was expressing to Swami Venkateshananda, kind of thinking he's going to give us the behind the scenes picture, and tell us that everything is okay. And he did. But he did it in an interesting way. He said, you know what this is like, the path you're on? He said, it's like you're on a train. And on the train, all the blinds are drawn and you don't know where you are. And so to you, all you see is the same thing around you. Same people, same walls, same ceiling, same floor, nothing changing. One day, the Buddha's going to lift up the shade and you'll be amazed at how far you've come. Until that day, it feels like nothing's happening. That really is what it's like. One day, the shade is up. I'm like, oh my God. And inevitably, when you look back at all the work and all the struggle you've done, you'll say, I paid such a tiny, tiny price for such a great blessing. When you were in the middle of it, it seemed like so much, so difficult. But when you look back, you say, it's nothing. That price that I thought was so high was really like a great sale. That's all I had to do. Yeah. That's what. So yoga is about transformation. It's not just stuffing in a few good ideas and practices that you could point to, then check off. If you just simply, if your yoga life looks like you checking off a list and feeling good about it, if that's all you have, it's not it. All those things are important. I'm not like diminishing those things. I'm just saying you can use them in a wrong way. You could use those same practices to strengthen your ego. Your practices should feel to you like breathing. You're not like proud that you're breathing today. In and out, in and out. All day, in and out. I'm so good at it. I don't even think about it. In and out. It's the same thing. You think, oh, look, I meditate every day. It should just feel like in and out. I do it. That's what I do. It's an extension of who you are. It starts as something you do. I do my yoga. You're separate from it. Later on, you don't even think about it. I'm doing my yoga. Just what happens. Just like you do your breathing, you do the other things. There's no particular pride that you're regular. You just do it. Natural, organic. Don't make your practices a source of ego strengthening. Make it a source of ego disassembling. Because when you disassemble the ego, what you find is your heart of hearts. Beyond pain and suffering. It is magic. There's no words. And it's right in front of us. Like, do we realize the absolute stunning miracle that you have awareness? You all are aware. You could say, I'm here. That's stunning. It's so common we don't realize that it's stunning. That is God. It's stunning. All this stuff could just be here and no awareness. Right? Just could be matter, that's all. Material things. But there's awareness. That's stunning. Greatness is found in the little things. Greatness is found in the little things. Swami Vivekananda said, any fool can rise to greatness on great occasions, but only a truly great person is great in every small thing. He also said something else we should remember. He said the very first sign that you're on the spiritual path is you become cheerful. Until then, you're not quite on the path, you're flirting. When you get on the path, there's a kind of, optimism isn't a good enough word, but it's the only one I can think of. There's kind of an optimism, but not like positive thinking optimism. It's not strong enough. It's like you've seen, you know the feeling. Have you ever had like a really, you all have had, a really crummy night where you're up most of the night or all night, and then there comes this time when the dawn, not the sun is up, but dawn is starting to break. That's a stunning moment. You know that the sun's going to come up. And with it, there's like a renewed hope. It's not optimism, then, right? I don't know what you would call that. Rabindranath Tagore was a great Nobel Prize-winning poet from India years ago. He wrote a little poem. It's very short. It's a book called Fireflies. Like 1 or 2 line poems. This one is, faith is the song of a bird that sings before the sun comes up. Have you ever heard that? When you go up early in the morning, it's dark. Just maybe a tiny bit of light you can notice in the sky, a little green that comes in. And already there's a bird singing. You wouldn't call that optimism, right? Something bigger. First sign you're on the spiritual path is you become the bird that sings before the sun comes up. So that was the subject for tonight. Thank you, Miss Gillette. It's always nice. I come. I don't usually know what we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk after this one and have some topics for the rest about peace and
Oh, we are?
transformation. Yeah.
Don't tell me. I like to be
Okay.
surprised.
Okay.
One of my favorite things when I teach at the New York IYI, because in New York I speak there quarterly, every season, so quarterly. And so they send, they're really organized there. I get a little email from them saying, it's time for the next session, we want you to give another talk, come up with something. So usually I'm on the phone with Narani and I said, just pick something from, I gave her a file years ago, called blurbs. Just pick something and it sounds good. That's mostly how we do it.
Okay.
And she'll say, how about this? I said, fine. I don't really have anything to say after that. In the meantime, when I get there, I have no recollection of what I'm speaking of. But they're very good there. They put flyers up all over. And they're usually the classes on the second, or Michelle's been with me. I look on the elevator to find my flyer to see what's going on. Talk about. That's my subject, okay. But, my favorite moment was similar to that was at Yogaville. There was someone, it was good that someone was supposed to give satsang but couldn't. So I got a call last minute, give satsang. So I was doing something as administrator, that there's always stuff you're doing. And I was a little late getting to satsang. I'm literally running into the hall. And as I'm running in, the satsang coordinator was Swami Jyotirmayananda. As I'm running, I said, Jyotirmayananda, what's my topic? Removing obstacles. It was just like hearing like a train going. Sometimes I don't recommend that technique. But the only time I've ever gotten nervous giving a talk was when I prepared for it. That's just me. I don't know why that happens. It's not like a great skill. I didn't work on it. It just happened. But someone convinced me, or a couple of senior people years ago, I don't know if you know this, Margaret, they convinced me better. It was at a retreat. Said, you give nice talks, but how much better it would be if you really planned it. And I kept saying no, and then finally I said, all right, maybe they're right. They've been here longer than me, so I made this outline. I had these little cards, and I got up to speak. I was so nervous because I kept thinking I'm going to forget something. And finally, people were looking at me like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" They were like, so I just took the cards and turned. All right, let's talk about it.
When Guru first spoke in the church in Central Park West, most people were amazed that he never had notes.
Really?
Yeah, that was the first thing they ever said. He was speaking 3 hours on a topic. Back then, you would ask a question, and he would answer the question. Sometimes it was really medical or scientific. He said, I don't know that much about it, and he speak for 45 minutes. And most people say they were amazed that he didn't look at a note or anything.
Margavanda was pretty much almost at the very beginning. You were 67?
67.
Gurudev came in 1966. Margavanda was one of the early people. Right? Gurudev always showed the highest respect for disciples that stuck it out through the years. Right?
He was a good friend. He was like your best friend.
It's very rare. People come in and go out. You know, they come and they go. Very few people just
Can
come.
Margo Banda get this gift
What?
now? Because he has to leave. Can Margo Banda give you something now?
Me?
Because he has to leave, yeah.
Me?
He has something.
Who's that?
Oh, because it snowed that day? Is that what?
Yeah. And plus.
My birthday was the big snowstorm.
So.
Oh. Wow, the bag alone. I was when I saw it
interrupt.
out of the corner of my eye. I saw that. What are you carrying?
It's got glasses.
Uh-oh.
It's wrapped in a bloody-
Oh, here it is. Now I got it. Wow. Look!
No? No.
No, I have to see it first. Is it upside down? Right?
Sideways.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 I like this thing. I almost don't want to show anybody, so it's really greedy. There was the 20th? Was this the 20th? Was it ever due? What day was it? 20th? No, the 18th. 18th of December. You all know, some of you must know at least, that years ago, really famous Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Young Rascals.
Yeah.
The leader, Felix Cavalieri, came to get married here in New Jersey. And Margo Bandhu hooked us up, so I did the ceremony, did the wedding. So this is a picture of the wedding.
We had to keep the wedding private because if the newspaper would have found out, there would have been too many people.
Yeah.
And we were getting, some people found out, and we were getting calls from California. People come to see, come to the service, so we had to refuse a lot of people. It was a small private service.
This is gorgeous.
I always say Jagannath wasn't my first choice. It was my only choice.
That is beautiful.
You know, I have a lot of other pictures of that day, but the photographer made that one. JD.
Really?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Wow. And Gurudev is in it too. See how he's watching over.
I couldn't wait to give it to him. I was ready to give it to him.
Wow.
Told everything. He goes, don't tell anyone, but he told everybody.
I didn't know. No one told me. Wow, Margo Bandhu. That's beautiful. Thank you. It was real. It was small, but it was really powerful. It was beautiful.
Felix Cavalieri was the first one. He introduced me to the song besides the line. That's how I met Roberto through the Rascals. So we always maintained that closeness. He was in Tennessee, you know. So, and he loved. He called me the next day and he said, "Jagannath was fantastic." As usual, right? You know that, right? So.
It looked like I fell asleep a little bit, but I'm actually, I don't know what I'm looking at. Either sleeping or like deep in meditative thought. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't remember. Their vows or something. Yeah, we met before. We talked about their vows and what was going to happen, and we had a beautiful ceremony. It was a memorable day, but this is really Margo Bandhu. This is stunning. Yeah, it was great. Felix was crying.
It looks like the yantra's your halo.
All our heroes. Wow, Margo Bandhu. Thank you, everybody involved. Thank you. This guy. I've seen him do the most beautiful, selfless things over the years you wouldn't believe. Like a saint. I mean, literally, instant response to help people. Like if you bump your knee, his hand is there before yours. It's like that. It's like, that's him. I have to put this somewhere. I don't want to put it on the ground.
You want me to put it back in the bag, wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would wrap it.
Yeah, I don't want to put it on the ground. It's abuse, Oh, man. It was worth the wait.
Thank you very
Wait,
much.
I'll just say a few words because this is our 10-year anniversary of Yoga Life Society, and we wanted to express our gratitude for everyone who's helped us over the years, who's offered us their home, who's helped us. And Farallon Integral Yoga has been an integral part of the Yoga Life Society. And I think one of the first times I met Guruji was at a daytime satsang in Farallon. So we are so grateful for you and your institute, and just a little token of our appreciation for 10 years of
Love and support.
Yes.
It really has been extraordinary.
I was trying to think of like 3 letters that would combine the institutes, you know, YLS or IYS or something. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're all going to appreciate this. What is it? It's like what? I can't. Like a salt.
Oh, yes.
It's a healing.
By the way, really, to be as Asian for a moment, really, if you need any kind of healing, this is the God. I don't know anybody who knows more about herbs and nutrition than Mark Bond. And just being near him is healing alone. But
The secret is we do it at the institute. We heard those energies there, so that's. I mean, I can put you on the table and go watch television.
that's your heart.
Mahalakshmi, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Guruji, I'm just gonna, is it okay if I, everyone, there's four people who have joined the broadcast, so just let them know that we're signing off and continuing with the evening.
Yeah, who's at the door at 4?
I can't see who the 4 people are, just said that we have 4 viewers watching either through our website or through YouTube or Google Hangouts.
Hi, 4.
So if you can hear it.
High 5.
So we're signing off. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.